Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to the A24 project here on the Nerd Party Network. Every 2 weeks, me and Dallas look at 2 films from the A24 filmography, and in between, we're lucky enough to speak with the talent involved in bringing their films to the big screen. This week, I'm joined by actor Daniel Malik to discuss his performance as one of A24's most legendary characters, Black Phillip in Robert Eggers' debut feature, The Witch. Daniel discusses his career, the audition process for Black Phillip, working on the set and with Robert Eggers, the reaction to the film, and much, much more. Enjoy the show, and thanks so much to Daniel for joining me.
Black Phillip, I conjure thee to speak to me. Speak as thou dost speak to Jonas and Mercy. Dost thou understand my English tongue? Answer me.
What dost thou want?
What canst thou give?
Wouldst thou like the taste of butter? A pretty dress? Wouldst thou like to live deliciously?
Yes.
Wouldst thou like to see the world?
What will you from me?
Dost thou see a book before thee? Remove thy shift.
I cannot write my name.
I will guide thy hand.
So, welcome to the show, Daniel. Obviously, I like to always ask people this whenever we get them on. What started you on your kind of creative journey to becoming an actor and a creative talent?
Oh, thank you for having me. What started me as I grew up in a home of creatives. My father immigrated from Pakistan to Canada, and he actually pioneered one of the first sort of multicultural news channel here on a network here in Canada. And I kind of grew up in that household, and I would, I was surrounded by his creativity, and via him producing these shows, and he then got into becoming this middleman for, and mind you, this is all for like the South Asian market, South Asian industry, not so much Hollywood, but all the same. And he became this middleman for any time celebrities or actors or musicians wanted to come down and perform on stage. For some reason, he was the man to go to seek funding, to seek partnerships, to seek sponsorships. So yeah, I kind of just grew up in that realm, and I guess I bit the bullet there. That's something I wanted to do, and then when I went into schooling in elementary school and high school, I was just drawn to the arts, and I kind of like stuffed my backpack worth of courses of anything that had to do with the arts, and that kind of sparked it.
Were there like certain films and talents that you kind of looked up to and connected with when you were younger that sort of inspired you too?
Oh yeah, for sure. So it's weird. I've always been a little bit of an old soul. I mean, the movies that I'll start naming, you'll wonder, you're like, how old is this guy? Or how old was he when he was watching these movies? For some reason, I always refer to Roman Polanski's The Pianist as a movie that I just was, this is what a movie is for me, and this is what I want to do, this is what I want to portray, and I never quite understood at that time what I was feeling, but Adrian Brody, was this actor that any movie he was in, I would just watch, and he's such a versatile actor, and seeing him from, different movies, I was always drawn to him, to Adrian. The Pianist was the movie, and then Ethan Hawke became this guy that I was obsessed with, and watching him and all his movies, and then when he did Hamlet, and then watching him in Hamlet, even though it was a modern take, that got me into Shakespeare. And then I started reading Shakespeare, and then I started doing plays, and I started getting into the stage. So yeah.
I'd read that you sort of grew up disliking the sound of your voice, and you practiced kind of different accents as sort of kind of young, and I think you adopted this as sort of your own thing. Was that sort of an early indication for you of sort of being someone quite creative, playful, and kind of getting into the acting kind of rhythm?
Yeah, for sure. Ironically and weirdly enough, that's probably how I got to play Black Phillip in The Witch. Because, yeah, so at a young age, I never really liked my voice, and I was playing with accents, and I would imitate everything: Scottish accents, English accents, my own accents, and I would just constantly be doing that. And I moved to England. I don't know if you know that. I moved to England for quite some time, a little stint, and I don't know. I started just becoming one, and all my friends were obviously English, and my girlfriend at the time was English, and I was just constantly surrounded by that. And I sort of somehow it leaked into my body. And when I returned back to Toronto and I had the audition for The Witch, I remember after the audition finished, the casting assistant, she turned and said, so I guess we don't have to look for anyone from the UK. And I said, well, why is that? And she said, well, because you're British, right? And I was just like, yeah. No, you don't need to look there. I'm right here. I'm your guy. But yeah, that was funny.
So obviously you touched on it there. How did sort of the voice of Black Phillip come to you? When did you sort of first get the heads up about this, and what was the approach like?
So how The Witch came to me, at the time I wasn't a represented actor. I did not have an agent. I wasn't part of the union. I was just getting into it. If anything, I was in right in the midst of my modeling career, if anything. It was around the time I returned back from England, and that's when modeling kind of snowballed, and I was very absorbed in that. Acting sort of took a backseat. I had more attention focused on modeling, sorry. And my modeling agent at the time had a friend who knew about this audition happening, and said that it's this horror film. Do you have anyone? They're looking for this kind of character. And she knew that I had this want of being an actor, and I was taking classes, and we would always speak about movies. So she said, do you want to go in for this? And I said, well, can I? And she said, well, I'll get you in if you want to do it. And I was like, oh, well, all right, I'll do it. And that was my first bite into acting as a whole. The Witch was my very first experience on set, my very first film. And I remember going into the audition, and I sat down in the audition room. It was my first experience for everything. So now I recognize the room, I recognize everything, and it's sort of just normal to me now. But when I look back, I sat down, I saw all these Toronto actors, these Canadian actors, and I went, what am I doing here? Like, this is completely absurd and completely surreal at the same time. But yeah, and then when I got the part, it was all immediate. It was all sudden. Robert was at the time in New York. Apparently, they had sent the tape. Robert saw the tape, called my agent, and said, "That's the guy. He's not an actor, but that's the guy." And then he called me and he said, "Let's meet Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever the day it was." He was returning back to Toronto. And then I met him, and then he showed me the books, and then he showed me the pictures, and then he offered me the part, and he said, "Would you want to do this?" And I said, "Yeah, for sure." And I didn't know how big this movie was going to be, but to be fair, I don't think anyone at the exact moment knew how big this movie would turn out. It was just this passion project for this guy, and I had no idea who he was. I had no idea who was casted. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. If I look back, I honestly thought it was just it was an independent project, but I thought it was a local project. I thought someone down the road was creating this farmhouse up in Mattawa, and we're shooting a film. And I remember when I was picked up to visit set, and it was a 4.5 hour drive, so I started getting to know the driver, and then on the way we picked up this other gentleman who came into the vehicle with a goat's leg, a manufactured goat's leg. It was a prosthetic. And I was like, "Well, what's that?" And he goes, "Oh, well, aren't you the goat?" And I went, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, this is for you." And I'm like, "All right, the goat turned human, though." He's like, Yes. He's like, and then he started talking to me about the film, because he was obviously on set more days than I. And he was the one who first told me who I was in the movie with. He said, "Well, there's Kate Dickie." And at the time, I think she had just finished Game of Thrones at that time, if I'm not mistaken. And I never watched Game of Thrones. That's the thing. I knew how big this show was, but I never knew that she was in it. And then he showed me the IMDb listings of Ralph Ineson, and I knew who he was. And then this newcomer, Anya. So yeah, needless to say, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So everything was sort of just very on the spot and very real and very surreal for me.
I want to go back a little bit quickly to your audition. How much sort of direction did you have sort of going into that kind of audition process of like what they were looking for? Or did you sort of have your own kind of creative freedom? Here's the lines. What are you going to bring to it, kind of thing?
Yeah, no, yeah. So the audition was very quick, I remember, and it was very there was no notes attached to it necessarily. They kind of just let me do what I wanted, and they had given me the script, so I read the script and I understood that it was obviously in a Shakespearean language, and I assumed that if anyone were to get this role, they need to know how to speak the language. I think that's the main thing that they're looking for. And luckily enough, I was doing enough reading of plays and Shakespeare studying, and so I brought what I did, and they liked it.
Did you sort of was there sort of kind of a couple of different ones that you sort of tried, or was it very much kind of you had kind of zeroed in a very specific style?
Yeah, there's a I think they probably do have this as a take. I did a very I'm not going to do the line reading, but I remember I did this very deep sort of like, I'll do a little like this and just talking, and like kind of like that grisly sort of voice, and I think they just stopped and went, well, that's great, but let's not make him so much a character, and let's just try to do it with your own voice. And then I was like, oh no, I'm getting in my head, I don't like my own voice, what if they don't like it? And then, but they did. I don't know. I think that's just a reflection of me, that I grew up hating my voice, and at the moment I didn't want to show them what my real voice sounded like. And then I ended up making a fool out of myself by putting on a different voice.
Did it evolve any kind of further when you sort of met Robert Eggers and kind of you two kind of bounced off each other? Did it kind of evolve then, or was it by that point he was completely sold on your interpretation of the dialogue and the voice?
Yeah, no, I think it's the latter. I remember we were walking around set, and he was just, talking to me. First we were just talking about him and I, and then what he was trying to accomplish here and what he wanted out of it. And then he asked me if there was anything I wanted to do, and I said, "Do you remember that take? Did you get to see that take? I did this thing with my voice." And he kind of just looked at me, and I think in his eyes was like, "Oh, just don't do it. Please don't bring this up. Please don't bring this up." And I was just like, "I really think you should see this. I really think you should hear this. I think it'll be great for the take." And he was super nice and super polite enough. He's like, "Yeah, sure, give it a whirl." And then I did it, and then he came back to me and he said, "So we're gonna stick to your normal voice. I think it's." And then he just kind of like was a father to me in that sense, where he's like, "You're good enough. What you bring to the table is more than good enough." So I think that's a lesson in life that I am constantly learning.
What was it like on set? What was that experience like, and what was it like with like Kate, Anya, Ralph? What was that dynamic like on set for you?
Yeah. Okay. So that's actually quite funny as well. When I didn't know how the scene itself was going to look like. The first time I saw it was the first time you saw it. It was in when I watched the film in the theaters, and I loved it. And then I started getting interviews, and people started writing things. The voice of Black Phillip, the voice of Black Phillip, and I was like, I was on set. That's me. You just have to like turn off all the lights and crush the blacks a little bit and brighten the screen. You'll see my nose over on your shoulder. But yeah, that's funny. On set, Kate was someone who I immediately connected with. She was the first person I met on set. Her hotel room was on the same level, same floor as I. So we spent a lot of time together, and I remember she knew all the spots in that little town we were shooting in. She had her little favorite lunch spot, and where she would go to eat on a bench that overlooked the river. And she was polite enough to take me, and we spent probably a whole afternoon together, and she was just talking to me about everything. She gave me advice on life and tips on my career and what I wanted to do, and she was nice enough to invite me. She said, "If you're ever back in England and you ever cross over to where she was, to ring her up." We got to take pictures and everything, and then I remember that evening, Kate said, "I want to introduce you to Anya and Ralph." They were on set. They were shooting a scene. I only met Ralph maybe for a few hours, and it was the most intimidating thing I've ever he was the most intimidating person I've ever met in my entire life. But given the fact the scene he had just finished doing, which was the scene where he was eating the mud. So he came back to the hotel and he was completely distressed. And I didn't know if he was also putting on this voice. I didn't know how deep his voice was. And he is a tower of a man as well. So he came over and he kind of just looked over at me. He didn't know who I was for a second. And then Kate was nice enough to introduce us. And he went, "Oh, you're here. That's great. How are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm good. Are you all right?" And then he just immediately went to Kate, and then he hugged Kate, and he just started describing what he went through. And it's his word, so I won't go into details of that. But I was like, "What is this film? What is happening on set? This is crazy." But obviously, Ralph absolutely smashed it. And then I met Anya, who was this. I didn't know if she had ever acted before. I didn't know if she was my age or younger than but I remember she had this fireball of an energy, and she was super polite and super nice and caring, and she wanted to know everything about me, and she wanted to know what I wanted to bring to the table, and did I want to rehearse or not. And she was just a super loving, fun woman, and now she is who she is, and she's completely blown up, and I'm very happy for her.
One of those things, like I was thinking as you were talking there, sort of like, what was it like to sort of prepare for that kind of the famous scene, what's it like to live deliciously scene? How did you sort of prepare you and Anya together for that one? What was your kind of process?
If I can remember, this was many years ago. But I do remember we didn't rehearse much. It wasn't too much. It was and it's a blessing in disguise in the sense that I was only on set for so long. And it is just that scene, so it's kind of an in and out. It's kind of like let's not focus too much about it. If it is the pivotal scene, it is the ending scene, and it did end up becoming this memorable scene. But I think it's because we put just enough work into it. We didn't overwork it. We kind of just let it go. And I remember we did a few takes, and I walked around her a few times, and we did it different ways, and we tried a few different things, but it wasn't too. I remember it was over before I knew it was over. They sort of said, "That's a wrap on Daniel," and I went, "Oh, that's it. We're done. Like I don't get to play anymore."
Could you believe that sort of like with the film when like that it would have this huge impact that it's sort of within 2 weeks of the film's release, there's like a witch promo built around your character. Did you sort of see in that moment of like that's a wrap, that months later when the film was released that it would explode in the way it would, and mostly around your character?
No. I had no idea that my character, the goat, the Black Phillip, any of that would be what it is today. I honestly did not think that.
One of the things I was curious about, like I'd read some horror stories about the goat himself. Did you sort of have experience about, like I've read that Ralph Ineson like hated that goat, that it injured him, some real terrors from that. What was your experience like? Did you get to see your sort of fellow character in that way?
Yeah, there's a picture of me and Charlie out there somewhere in the Innersphere. Yeah, I heard these stories of Ralph absolutely hating this goat. I mean, it injured him. I don't personally remember anything that the goat did that was harming or alarming in front of my eyes. It was very nice. I mean, it was a goat. It was a cute little goat for me. But I heard that certain people on set. I mean, I don't know. Spend a whole goddamn day with a goat. I think you'll end up hating it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I spent a few hours with the bastard, and I loved it. But you spend weeks on end with it, and you're swimming in mud with it. I mean, the goat's gonna hate you back.
Definitely. So when was the first time you got to see the finished product? Did you, and what was your reaction on that opening screening?
The film released in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. And I had just come back from Pakistan at that time. I was working in Pakistan, and I came back, and yeah, the whole like you mentioned, the whole campaign started happening, and it kind of, I sort of forgot about the film because, to the truth be told, after I shot The Witch, I didn't act after that for about a year. And I was very involved in the modeling industry, and I sort of forgot about this project that I did, and I was taking classes and this and that, and then when I returned back from Pakistan, the promotions had been starting again, and it kind of got me excited about the film again. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the film that I did. This is amazing. Wow, it's getting a lot of attention, and holy crap, there's a lot of buzz around this. So I started jumping. I think that's when I even created Twitter, and I started jumping on the bandwagon of my own film. But I was promoting it, and I saw it. I saw it with a friend. I just went to the movie theaters and I saw it with a friend. And I just saw it as another guy, as another person in the theater.
When was the moment that you realized, like, you know, you go from seeing your own film to, like, it almost seems to have exploded. There's Black Phillip tattoos. I've seen some on Reddit of, like, people that have this goat in your lines. You're a Pop Funko toy. It's one of the most quoted A24 characters. It seems that the more people find the movie, the more people are connecting with it. Like, what's that kind of like to have something that you've done be on people's bodies and toy shops, to be viral, really? What's that like? It must be surreal.
It's exciting, it's surreal, it's flattering, and it's sometimes, and I have specific moments where it got a little creepy, but I mean, all in all, it was a fun twist of attention. I mean, yeah, it was attention, and it was more of, people started writing me emails and started sending me things, and my agent's office sort of had this little corner for me of like, you got this today, and you've got that today, and it's very cool. I mean, I love art, and I love these drawings, and I started encouraging it. I'm like, if you guys wanted to do it, then, you know, I want to see it. I don't want to miss it. I want to help promote you guys as well, and I want to share what this means to you. I'm a part of it, and we're all a part of it, and let's sort of show the world how great this movie really is. And yeah, it did get a little creepy when I started reading tweets of people saying they want to sell their soul to me and what they would want to do, and rather of those sort of things. I wasn't so much comfortable with that, but it gave me a good laugh.
With is there any sort of the merchandise or anything that you own, like a print or anything? Do you have like a little thing where you go, this is my Black Phillip shelf?
I'm looking at it right now. I've got a couple of things there. Pop Funko did not send me one, by the way.
That's shocking. For like $10, the fact that they can't send you one.
You know, and so I went and got one myself because I had to get that little guy.
Did you sign it to yourself as well?
Did I sign it to
Daniel
myself?
from Daniel?
Well, at the time I was known as Wahab, so it would be like from Wahab to Daniel, which would be a weird sort of psychological thing going there. Yeah, and I've got a couple of pieces of artwork that I managed to save that people had sent me, and they're brilliant. They're really, really brilliant. What I really want is there's a story that when Rob invited me to his office to offer me the role, before offering me the role, I remember he said, "This is why I wanted to meet you," and I said, "Well, why is this?" And I remember we stepped into his office, and his office was just cluttered with images and fabric, textiles, and pieces. And at the time, I didn't know what his background was in theater and as a set designer. But he had all these books, and then he showed me this one book in particular, and he said, "Well, this is." He's like, "I'm going to show this to you, and I just want to see your reaction." And I remember he turned the book to me, and I flipped through it, and it was like this chapter of Black Phillip, and you know all the sketches that he made of him. And I'm looking at this book, and I'm like, "Rob, have we met before?" And then he goes, "That's exactly what I'm talking about, because the sketches were me. The sketches were literally of me." And he goes, "That's why I wanted you. I saw your taping. You look just like what I drew." And I went, "This is crazy." And we started laughing. So he said, would you like to be a part of this film? And I said, "Well, I have to be, man. This is me." But yeah, that book I would really love to get my hands on. But I'm pretty sure that's in the vault.
I think they've recently released it. I can ping you the link to it. Like A24 have released what they're calling like first edition books. They've done one of Ex Machina, The Witch, and Moonlight, which has drawings. Oh yeah, I heard of that.
I heard of that. Would that be a part of that? That would be awesome.
I believe it is. Yeah, I'll send over a link to you. Yeah. So yeah, if you've got, it's slightly more expensive than a Pop Funko, but see if you can get on that for some of the free stuff. Go like, "Hey, I made your film one of the most popular. You know, send something over."
I think it's because they just know me as the voice. Now, if that scene had been any different, maybe who knows what would have happened. But all the same.
But obviously, like Robert's kind of, as you kind of touched on, he's meticulous. He's well researched. What's that like for as a sort of a talent to work with someone like that, to have someone that knows what they're doing, to have created such a unique script? Is that just dynamite for someone like you as a creative talent to be involved in?
Yeah, I think about this from time to time, and I've been thinking about it more and more right now with the Lighthouse, and what he's doing with that, and I remember thinking to myself, oh, if only, I don't regret it, of course, but I only wish I was who I am today. I was then, but obviously that's impossible. But I would love to work with Robert again at this stage of my life, with the experience that I have, and the maturity that I have, and the respect that I can, that I do have, and the ethic that I can bring to the work. Because at the time I was a kid, and I'm still a kid, but I was a younger kid then, and everything was the first for me, and I didn't really know what was going on, and I kind of was just like loving every moment, and which is beautiful in its own right and beautiful in its own sense, but knowing how much work Robert was putting into it and building the set and really making everything as authentic as possible, I think utilizing that and as an actor for your scenes can only help, and will grow, and your performance will. I mean, to work with that kind of actor, I mean, I'm reading these interviews that Willem and Robert Pattinson speak about what Robert brought to the table and how he rehearsed with those actors, and because Robert comes from a stage background, and he loves to have things blocked and rehearsed, but he also loves the freedom of it, and it's just, I mean, he made that set so particular and so authentic, and he recreated the times, literally. And I mean, and that goes to, about the movie is about a witch. The movie is not only about a witch, but it's meant to make the modern time person believe again in the witch. And in order to do that, you have to recreate the times, and he did that, and that's no small feat.
Do you kind of keep in touch as like a moment in time? Do you have like a witch group chat or something, or do you just kind of regularly check in with each other? Have you ever followed up on Kate's offer and come up to beautiful Scotland?
Kate is probably the only one that I have kept in touch with, to be honest. No, there's no group chat. If there is, I'm not part of that one. But I think I've touched base with Anya once or twice after that, and Ralph, I've never touched base after that. I think my meeting with Ralph was that one time, and I've never met him again. But Kate, yeah, she was sweet enough to keep in touch after, and she followed up on her promises of giving me advice and tips and contacts and in regards to the acting industry, and that definitely had helped me at that time. And yeah, and every now and then, whenever we see each other work over the internet and things like that. Like recently, Kate was just on what that I noticed was Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
So I reached out, and so we talk every now and then.
It was quite surreal recently. I was down in London covering the red carpet for The Lighthouse, and I saw Ralph, Anya and Kate all appear on sort of the red carpet for this film, and it was so surreal to see them all kind of together. It sounds like working with Robert seems to inspire people, seem to work with him and really enjoy and connect with him. He sounds like an incredible director.
Oh yeah, for sure. I believe Anya is also in talks for Robert's next movie.
Yeah, that's it. Sounds an incredibly interesting film. Is that something that you'd hopefully be involved in too?
I think it would be. You know what? Obviously, I'll say this, and I think it would be amazing one day. I think the internet will go crazy if Robert and I ever got together. It'll be obviously Black Phillip back again, or something like that. But yeah, I would be completely interested in that. And it's a Viking film, and I love Vikings, and I love all of that. And it's interesting that Robert has been doing these kind of period pieces. I would love to see if he were to do anything contemporary, but I mean, let's see.
Looking back on your witch experience, what's been the real highlight and standout moment for you as you sort of reflect on it?
Just getting to meet the team, to be honest. Yeah, I started developing my own feature and a couple of years ago, and Robert was nice enough to be on that thread as well. And before he got busy, I believe, developing his next film, he was very much engaged in helping me, and he was so nice. He had sent me scripts and drafts, and for as guidances and just long emails of tips and just encouragement. So that was I mean, as an actor and as someone who's a creative and wants to develop their own feature, like that's an endless supply of knowledge there. So yeah, that would be the highlight, just getting to meet these individuals and what they brought to the table and what I learned from them.
And do you find you ever get sort of approached as sort of to quote the film or anything like that? Do you have any sort of interesting fan interaction like that?
I do, but honestly, I just say, hey man, listen, I'm a one hit wonder. You know, it was then and that's it. I mean, like I do get that a lot. People always. I remember during TIFF I had, and this is not to say anything bad about this interaction. It was great in its own right, but I remember during TIFF. I had someone who wanted to meet me, and it was set up via my agents, and she wanted to speak about a project, and then she had brought someone with her, and whose sole purpose was just to ask me, could you leave a voicemail for my brother and say your line? And I was like, well, this is also a business meeting. It's not like I understand, but like it was just it kind of threw off that moment. But yeah, people really love that line. Live delicious. You've
continued to sort of your acting, and as you've highlighted your modelling career, what have been sort of the highlights for you sort of since The Witch, that for people that might know you from sort of your Witch experience, what are kind of some of the highlights that you would recommend kind of people checking out? I know you starred in that fantastic sci-fi series, The Expanse, for example.
Oh yeah, Expanse is a great show. They're actually filming right here in front of me, just by my neighborhood. So I might pop by after. Yeah, The Expanse is a fantastic show. I mean, it's been... I know I have no right to say this because I haven't seen the show, but it's being compared to the Game of Thrones of space. Yeah, that's a fantastic show. It's got great actors, great scripts, great action. I've been fortunate to have been a part of their second season, but it was such a small... I was attached to it in a very small part, but the fan base of that show as well. It's fan bases like this fandom is amazing. They brought back this show. The show was canceled. It was taken off of Sci-Fi, and the fans petitioned. They flew planes over the Amazon headquarters. They rallied together and the fans literally saved this show, and now it's shooting its 5th season, and but the 4th season will be releasing, I believe, next month, November or December, and I get to play again, so you'll be expected to see me on that season as well.
That'll be awesome. Like you seem to pick projects that seem to get strong fan bases and so on.
I'm just lucky, man. I'm just lucky.
Oh, you've got the eye for a good project.
No, I'm totally lucky in that sense, and I'm totally lucky that this is where you were speaking about before about the with the Witch and how the fans interact and and what that does for me. I mean, like. It's also that cliche line of like, oh, I wouldn't be here without my fans or anything like that. But it is like I actually do mean that. I know I put on a voice there, but like I do mean that in the sense that again with The Expanse, I played such a small role in the second season. People liked it. People then petitioned and said, rallied as well to say bring this character back, and it skipped the season, and then I got word from the showrunner who had an eye on a character for me, and I had originally auditioned for a different character. So they're bringing me back as a completely different character in this season. So I don't play the same character.
Only in sci-fi.
Yeah, only in sci-fi.
Even if they kill you, there's always a good chance you'll come back in the following season as well. So you're always into a winner with something like that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's funny.
And what's it like with your modeling? What's it like for yourself? What's the discipline like that has in common with acting, but what's also kind of different about modeling to acting?
Yeah, there's similarities and there's obviously the differences. I got into modeling via an ex-girlfriend of mine. I always wanted to get into acting. She was a model actress, and she said, well, if acting's not happening at the moment, there's this other field called modeling, which you can completely, cross promo yourself, and you can help. This will always help utilize your craft, and that's kind of what drew me into that. And then once I started modeling, it's not just you take off your shirt and you put a little smile on. You smile with your eyes. It's just there's a craft to it, and there's creative processes that go behind the projects that you are attached to, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I thoroughly enjoyed creating projects with people and creating projects in the cities that I worked in. And that helped utilize my image and my branding, and I became it was like exposure in that sense. And then when acting came about more and more, it's weird because I feel like I have these three different stages of life, and it's partly due to the fact that I kept changing my bloody name. So when I was modeling, I was known as Wahab Chaudhry, which was my legal name, and then when I started acting more, I switched it to Daniel Chaudhry. And the reason I switched the name was because I was originally born with the name Daniel. And someone in my family, I think it was one of my uncles, didn't like the name Daniel, and he switched it to Wahab. My aunt actually wanted me to be Daniel. And so then when I switched it to, when I was acting, that's a different phase. So people know me as Wahab Chaudhry, the models. People know me as Daniel Chaudhry, Black Phillip, and this actor. And then I recently changed it again for Mother's Day. I took my mom's last name, and now I'm Daniel Malik. But I promise I won't be changing it anymore.
Yeah, three times plenty. But hey, you never know, if you hit a midlife crisis, you can always go for something different. You've probably got one more chance then.
People thought I was having a midlife crisis already. They're like, are you having an identity crisis? And I said, no, I know who I am. I like this name, and I'm sticking with it now. And also, IMDb is getting pissed off, so I gotta stop doing it.
Yeah, you can never piss them off. And we pose this question to sort of every guest that we get on the A24 project. What are some of the highlights for you from their filmography?
Oh, you know what? I see movies late, okay, and I'm on the bandwagon late, and I'm late to the party always. Hereditary, I just saw, and oh my God, I love that film. It's such a good film. And I didn't realize there was other films that were from A24 that I've loved. But I don't know, off the top of my head, Hereditary, Moonlight, Lady Bird, and I want to see, you did a podcast on this, I believe, right? Midsummer?
Yeah, Midsummer. Yeah, we haven't got round to that in the filmography yet, but on our other podcast we've covered it. So I really enjoyed Midsummer, but I think the director's cut is the best option to go down.
Yeah,
fantastic
man,
film. Another
party,
animal
man.
film.
Yeah, I'm late. I heard I'm late to the party, man. That's a film that me and my friends really want to watch, and for some reason I'm just not getting around to it. But I will say, when I watch movies nowadays, I watch foreign films. And I watch, I don't know, I just watch weird films, and I don't get to watch movies a lot. I don't know.
What are the kind of foreign films that are appealing to you at the moment that you've caught that's really impressed you?
It's a movie that I haven't seen. I know I will be impressed. Parasite.
Yeah, I'm desperate to see that. It's not even coming out in the UK till January, February time. I feel like everyone else in the world has seen it, but me and you now at this stage.
Well, I'm gonna end up jumping off of that ship very soon. I'm gonna be watching that as soon as possible. But yeah, The Lighthouse I'm actually watching tonight. Oh,
that's incredible. You have to let me know what you think of that one. I think it's now my favourite film of the year, so I'd love to hear your reaction to that one day.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have a follow-up conversation on that one. I can't wait to watch that tonight.
And kind of finally, where can kind of people reach out to you, check out your modelling work, keep track of upcoming kind of projects, if they discover you're in a TV show that's getting cancelled, that they can arrange to get a plane to fly over Amazon. Of course, where's the best kind of place to touch base with you, Daniel?
I love that. I'm on Twitter. I'm on that Twitter. I love Twitter. I feel like that's something. I love Twitter more than I do Instagram. I feel like there's just more engagement. There's more real conversation that can happen, and it can come about from that. So I haven't used Instagram in over a month, and so I'm on Instagram as well. I'll be jumping on that again. I do love Instagram. I know I'm hating on that, but yeah, Twitter, Instagram, the internet. I'm there. People can find me. I'm around there.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much for joining me today, Daniel. I can't get in the way of you getting to see Lighthouse any longer. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure to sort of go behind the scenes on The Witch and talk with you today. It's been a real pleasure.
Hey man, I hope it was entertaining.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, brother.